welcome back to my channel, and also welcome to one of our finished rooms. Although it's only way at the back, and we have a little bookshelf, so I'm very pleased. And today I'm so happy to be bringing you my Longlist prediction for the Women's Prize for Fiction. So as you might know, if you've been following my channel, you might not, you might just be new, welcome. But I did a predictions list for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction, and that was really fun. Not a lot of people seem to be as involved or as interested in that list, but I know fiction, everyone's waiting for that one. And I've seen that loads of people have come out with their predictions video already, and I've stopped myself from watching them because I want to make my list and publish it first, because I was worried that people's lists were going to influence mine and maybe it would lead me in the right direction, but also I wanted to do a Camilla list. My initial list had 40 titles. And so I've been slowly picking off. God knows how the judges do it. But it was really fun. Last year I did my first predictions video for the Women's Prize, and I only got one correct. That was A Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. And frankly, I was kind of happy with that. My first try got one. This year, I'd like to beat that and get two. That would be wonderful. The Women's Prize for Fiction, as an introduction, I'm sure if you're watching this video though, you already know. They do a long list of 16 books, and these have to have been published between the 1st of April of 2023, so the year before the prize announced, and the end of March of the year that the prize announced, so 2024 for this year. So my list is in order of publication, so we start in April last year and we'll move on to this year. Before we dive in, a good caveat to add to this video, as always, is that I have read none of these books, so take it with a grain of salt. So let's dig in. The first book that I selected was Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. This came out in April 2023. I believe that she's British-Palestinian author, and I don't know, it just, the whole book sounded so very relevant to obviously the last few months and everything, but it just sounds really interesting. So it's based around an actress who's been living in London. She's moved back home, and I guess she has this feeling of not really recognizing her home. And then she gets involved, I think, she joins the production of Hamlet in the West Bank. Soon she's rehearsing Gertrude's line in classical Arabic with a dedicated group of men who, in spite of competing egos, all want to bring Shakespeare to that side of the wall. And yeah, I just thought it sounded amazing. And yeah, that's my first pick. My second pick is Biography of X by Kat and Lacey, and this also came out in April 2023. This is based around X, who's a kind of, I guess, iconic artist in this kind of book world. And she passes away, and then her partner starts wanting to write a book about her. But X has been keeping a lot of secrets that even her wife doesn't know. So she uncovers a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of mystery to it. I don't know, it just sounds rather fascinating. That's why I decided amongst all the books to keep it on my list. Then in number 3 we have A House for Alice by Diana Evans. This came out also in April 2023, and I believe that Diana Evans's previous book, one of them, I think it's Ordinary People, has been shortlisted, I believe, for the Women's Prize for Fiction previously. So I thought this sounded so interesting, and also, a known name to the prize. This is based around a woman, Alice, who is dying, and she'd like to go home to Nigeria to do this, and then her children kind of are getting involved, and this is set against the backdrop of Grenfell, and I don't know, it sounded amazing, and I had to add it to the list. And also I like this line. It says, "These ordinary people are faced with fundamental questions about who they are, what they want, and where and with whom they want to be." In number 4 we have The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Mayr. This came out in the UK in May 2023. This has previously won actually the Giller Prize in Canada, I believe in 2022, and yeah, it just came out last year, so that's why it would be eligible for this year. And I feel like sometimes books that have been winning or shortlisted for other prizes make this list as well, and I thought this sounds like a really good one. And recently, not to get all controversial, but recently a lot of the books that have won has been stories about men, and this is one of them. In The Sleeping Car Porter, we follow, as the title suggests, a sleeping car porter named Baxter. He's black and he's queer, and he's trying to hide kind of part of his, identity But then there's a mudslide that happens on the train. There's like problems and secrets and everything that kind of arise. I know it's been on my list ever since I saw it was actually longlisted for the Giller in 2022. So I'm very excited to get to it at some point. And I thought it'd be nice to have a Canadian edition to this list, so I've added it here. In the same vein, I've added Western Lane by Chetna Maroo, which came out in May 2023 as well. It was longlisted and shortlisted for the Booker last year, so I thought it might be a good contender here. It is based around the life of a young woman who's lost her mother, and she feels quite alone, but she throws herself in the sport that she does. I think her father's like pushing her along, and I know that that was one of the top books from the Booker list that I wanted to read. I still haven't done it, but I thought it might be also a good one for this list. Also coming out in May 2023 is 8 Lives of a Century-Old Trickster by Mirinae Lee. And this sounded like a hoot, basically, is why I've added it here. It said, at the Golden Sunset Retirement Home, it is not unusual for residents to invent stories. So when elderly Mrs. Mook first begins to unspool her memories, the obituarist listening is a bit skeptical. Stories of captivity, friendship, murder, adventure, assumed identities, and spying. Stories that take place in World War II Indonesia, in Busan during the Korean War, in Cold War Pyongyang, in China. The stories are so colorful and various, at times so unbelievable, that they cannot surely all belong to the same woman, can they? I was sold on that book immediately. In number 7, we have I'm Homeless If This Is Not My Home by Lorrie Moore, and this came out in June 2023. A bit similarly, this is based on a hospice in New York, and it says that Finn sits with his beloved brother Max, who is slipping from one world into the next. But when a phone call summons Finn back to a troubled old flame, a strange journey begins, opening a trapdoor in reality. This book sounds like, I feel like when I look back at my list for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction, there was a lot about grief, and I'm seeing some of these themes come back again, because clearly there's books that kind of not called to me, but I just find it fascinating, and this is clearly one of them. And also I thought that the cover was striking and the name of it, like, you know, the title of the book, so I thought it could be one of these wildcard books that kind of makes it on the list that not a lot of people have heard about, so trying it here. Then we have, and I had to put it on the list, I'm sorry, we have Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, which came out in July 2023. This has been shortlisted, longlisted and shortlisted for the Booker. It just won the Giller Prize in Canada as well, because Sarah Bernstein is Canadian, and just everyone's talking about it. When I first read about it, it sounded a bit traumatizing and weird, so not my vibe, and I was like, I'm not sure I want to read this, so I didn't. But it also gave me Cursed Bread vibes, like so much. And that was obviously longlisted last year, and I feel like this book has vibes of the Women's Prize for Fiction. So that's why I added it here. And also, yeah, it's clearly been a favorite of prizes in the last year. Then another one of my sort of like wild card books that I've recently found is But the Girl by Jessica Zhan Mei Yu. This came out in August 2023. So the character girl is actually born in Australia from Malaysian parents, or it says this the day she's born on the day that her parents and grandparents immigrated from Malaysia to Australia, because her mom was like trying to keep her in until they arrive in Australia and she could be born there and have a passport. But it seems to be tackling like the really hard pressure of basically being the embodiment, like very literally, of your parents' ambitions and hope for the future. And I just thought that theme was really interesting. But then obviously what kind of got me was the fact that girl then gets funding and kind of a scholarship and everything to come do her PhD in the UK, which I'm in the middle of my PhD in the UK, you know, so I love that shit. But so she comes here and then she starts studying post-colonial literature, I want to say, and it's like questioning what post-colonial means, especially with her own background. And yeah, I just immediately I gravitated toward that book, and I thought it could be a good one for here. Then another book that made my list really early on and I couldn't not remove was A Council for Dolls by Mona Susan Power, and this came out in September 2023. Power is a Native American author, and this is what a little bit of that community that book tackles. It seems to be based around 3 different generations. So we have Cora, born in 1888, Lillian, born in 1925, and then Sissy, born in 1961. And this is, yeah, it says, from mid-century metropolis of Chicago to the windswept ancestral lands of the Dakota people, to the bleak and brutal Indian boarding schools, A Council for Dolls, the story of three women, told in part through the stories of the dolls they carried. It sounds really fascinating and like a book that we probably need to read. Next, we have one of the latest addition to my list. It is Julia by Sandra and Newman, and this came out in October 2023, and I've heard only great things about it since, and that's why like a couple weeks ago I was like, oh, I think I have to add it to my list. I feel like that's a good contender as well. If you don't know this book, it is basically a kind of feminist reinventing of 1984. We follow the character Julia, who works as a mechanic fixing the novel writing machines in the fiction department of the Ministry of Truth. It says 75 years after Orwell's finished his iconic novel, Sandra Newman has tackled the world of Big Brother in a truly convincing way, offering a dramatic, different feminist narrative that is true to and stands alongside the original. So yeah, what can I say more, you know? Next, I have Wrong Way by Joanne McNeil, and this came out in December 2023. And this seemed to be very contemporary in its feel. So we're following Teresa, who's kind of just hopped from one job to the next and stuff like that. And then she starts at this new job called All Over. It says, it appears to check all her prerequisites of a good job. It's a fintech corporation with progressive hiring policies and social justice-minded mission statement. Their new service for premium members, a function fleet of driverless cars. And so it sounds really like present but futuristic in a way. And it says that Joanne McNeil, she often reports on how the human experience intersects with tech and brings all of her compassion and criticism about labor and technology to this book, Wrong Way. It's kind of giving me Severance, you know? So yeah, I thought it sounded a bit relevant, especially after I saw that Codependent just made the nonfiction long list. And I know it's not the same judges, you know, but still very relevant to today. We are in the last few, so bear with me. Next, in number 13, we have One of the Good Guys by Araminta Hall, and this just came out in January 2024. I heard about this book, I feel like ages ago. I did not realize it just came out, but the lines of it just sold me immediately, and I feel like a bit worried about reading this book, but also really, it sounds like my kind of book. And the first line is, if most men say they're one of the good guys, then why are so many women afraid to walk alone at night? Cole is the perfect husband. He's a good guy. So when Mel leaves him, he's floored. She was lucky to be with a man like him. Craving solitude, he accepts a job on the coast and quickly settles into his new life, where he meets reclusive artist Lenny. Lenny has made the same move for similar reason. As their relationship develops, two young women go missing while on a walk protesting gendered violence, right by where Cole and Lenny live. Finding themselves at the heart of a police investigation and media frenzy, it soon becomes clear that they don't know each other very well at all. This is what happens when women have had enough. Again, I feel like I can't explain this book better than this blurb. Like, it just does such a good job. I have no idea what this book really is gonna be about. It sounds like maybe a bit crime fiction, but also clearly tackling like a bit like a la Promising Young Woman. You know, people say they're good guys and like what are they really afraid of, etc, etc. So yeah, sounded really good. Next, we have The Painter's Daughters by Emily Howe, and this came out just now in February 2024. I actually don't know a lot about this book, but the cover and the title just struck me. And we seem to be following two sisters. It says 1759 Ipswich. And so yeah, the two sisters, their father is a painter, obviously The Painter's Daughters. The sisters then are moved down to Bath, and they're thrown into like a very sort of, I want to say it kind of reminds me of Bridgerton and Jane Austen, very polite society. And then suddenly like the blurb takes a turn. So I have truly no idea what this book is about, but it says, one of the sisters goes to great lengths to protect her sister from the threat of the asylum. Like, wait, what? She finds herself falling in love, and their precarious situation is soon thrown catastrophically off course. The discovery of betrayal forces Peggy, one of the sisters, to question all that she has done for her other sister, Molly, and whether any one person can truly change the fate of another. So this blurb is like a wild ride, but I found it really interesting, and it's giving me a little bit marriage portrait from last year in terms of like a historical fiction based on women, so that's why I've added it here. Then the last two books are books that are coming out in March 2024, so again, obviously don't know much about these. The first one is Where the Heart Should Be by Sarah Crosnan, and this is based in Ireland in the 1800s and is following Nell, a woman who's working as a maid in a big house, and she kind of comes across like the nephew of the guy who owns the house who will basically inherit everything, and it seems like there's a spark there. I don't know much, and I don't know if it's actually falling into like a romance completely, which I feel wouldn't then make this list, but I think it could be tackling a lot of things about class and obviously Ireland in the 1800s, so that's why I thought it could be also a wild card here. And finally, in number 16, we have The Tower by Flora Carr, and this is a reimagining of the imprisonment of Mary, Queen of Scots, and her maids. So when they go to the island, you know, and I think this is juxtaposed a little bit with Queen Elizabeth and like the whole thing of power and women and imprisonment, you know. So it sounded really interesting. Again, I found like the end of that list is very historical fiction heavy, isn't it? But I just thought it sounded really interesting, so I've added it here because I thought there's always a book that hasn't come out that's going to make this list. Could be this one. We'll see. So yeah, so these were the 16 books. I won't give you any of the other titles because there is literally so many. So many. And frankly, you know, I probably have only 1 or 2 correct. Oh, and 0, you know, it could be actually that I have none correct. We just never know, but I'm so excited. The list is coming out in exactly 2 weeks, and yeah, I think all of us are very pleased. I'm gonna go, once I finish this, binge all of the videos that people have done. I've seen so many of people that I follow who've posted their video predictions, so I look forward to seeing that, what other people are saying, if I'm just completely off track. But it's just such a fun prize to do predictions for because there's so many options. Like last year, I feel like everyone's list was so different, and then the actual long list was just like more than 3/4 of it I'd never heard from before. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm very excited. Let me know what you think of the, you know, the books that I've mentioned. Which one do you think will really make the list? You know, there's always one book that people are like, for sure. And we'll get back to you very soon, and I will do a reaction when the long list is announced, so I'm very excited. Thank you for watching, and see you back. Bye!